Hello and welcome everybody to a new episode of Svelte D3, and today we are going to talk about the map again. So in my last video, let me switch to my screen. In my last video we built this map of the US with the 3000 plus counties, and when you hover over it you see the trail of counties that you've hovered, and this is it. And this is the code here. So we load a geojson file from this Plotly repository where we have all the coordinates of the US counties. Then we load this geojson with the JSON function from D3 and then assign the data that is loaded to the geojson variable. And with that variable we then build a projection. We use the GeoAlbus projection, which is also coming from D3, adapted to the width and height of our container here, which is just the viewport that you see here. And this is reactive with the $sign because we want to rebuild the projection when the width and the height has changed, and we want to also rebuild it when the geojson would potentially change. Then we build a path generator with the geopath function, also from D3, filling in the projection. Then we add a path generator, and with that we can loop over all the features, aka the counties, and add an SVG path to, an SVG path, the attribute to our counties. And with that, in the SVG here, we can loop over it. This is not nicely formatted. Now it's looking better. We can loop over it, and we get a path for each of the counties, and we can say, hey, is it active? So is the hovered county ID equally the ID here of our county, and the hovered county ID is set here on mouse enter. We could also use mouse move, but yeah, that's nicer because that's fewer events. That's it. We have some styles, and there's also like the whole CSS stuff for these trailing paths. So you can look that up in my Svelte D3 training repository, where you find all this in the folder map. Well, then I got a question on this video that says, hey, could you also make this map a little bit more reactive to user input? For example, how would you build it if you want to zoom in to one specific county that you select via click? So how does that work? So I answered, well, in the SVG you do this with a transform where you have a translate X, Y, and a center or a scaling. That potentially works here as well. We have just one challenge here. We have 3000 plus SVG path elements here. And of course we want to animate the zoom, so we want to smoothly go into the map and see where the county is that you just clicked on. And this is not possible in a smooth way if you use SVG, because it's just too many nodes the browser has to recalculate all the time. So before we can implement the zoom, we have to build a canvas version of this map. And we did canvas before, so if you want to know like all the principles about renderless components, how to use the canvas API with Svelte, please go to my previous video, which is called Svelte D3 canvas, where I explain all that by just putting some circles on a canvas. But of course you can also put SVG paths and maps with that on a canvas, and we should do this because we want to have a smooth animation later on. So let me just turn off my GitHub Copilot suggestions, and yeah, let's see how we build that. So what we want to have is, we do not want to have this SVG here, so we want to have a canvas here. And in my project I already included this standard canvas Svelte component, which is creating a new canvas, giving us the context, and which is also like scaling to the width and height and stuff like that. So everything is included. We created this component in the canvas video that you can watch in my playlist. So we just used that. So we can put in the canvas here and close the canvas here. And of course, this is giving us a lot of errors because canvas right now is not defined. So we have to import it. Import canvas from, what's that? It's canvas.svelte because it's in the same folder. So now we get the canvas. And if I store that, we have a blank space on our page because now that does not work. We have now an SVG element within the canvas. So this won't be possible here. Well, what we should do is we should like create some county component that is able to draw the shape of the respective counties. And I've also included that component already here. So let me open it. And this is also just a standard renderless component that we created before in the canvas video. So if you want to know more about that, please go to that video. And it has basically this draw function that gets the context of the canvas. And with that, we could draw a path to the canvas. So let's do that. I'm just commenting this out because maybe we need to know what we're doing here. So, well, the county takes the path, and we already get that. The path is already calculated here with the path generator, and we can just use this SVG path. Well, it is an SVG path, but it's just an assignment how to draw a path. We can also use that in a canvas renderless component, but we have to import county first. And you should spell it correctly. And yeah, this works like that. So county is not defined. Let's reload. Okay, now we do not get any errors, which is good. But nothing is drawn, of course, because our draw function is empty. And what we can do now is we could now create a new path object, and there is this new path2D API where you put in the path that we get. And what we can do is now we can just ctx.fill_p. This is drawing us the path, and it's actually filling the paths, not doing a stroke on them. So you see, well, everything is black, and we get the canvas map already. That was quite fast. Let me see what we do next. We do not want to have this in black, so what we do is before we do the fill, we do a ctx fill style, and we assign that to the fill property. You see it's here, fill is initially undefined, so there's happening just nothing. We just have to put in like the fill here, and I think this was just purple before. Let me check. Yeah, it was purple. It was defined as CSS. Now we do that. Well, now it's getting purple. Then we also had this opacity of 0.5 in our standard counties, and only when the county was active, aka when it was hovered, we changed the opacity to 1. So this is not possible to style via CSS anymore because now we are on a canvas. So you remember, if we go to our DOM, we see there's the canvas, and there are all these like county comments that come from the development mode. But there's no HTML for it, so we do not have the chance to style now all these different shapes separately. So I mean, we can get rid of this whole styles for the path, don't need them anymore. But now we have to pass in the opacity directly. And the hovered county ID is here. So if the hovered county ID equals the current ID, then we pass in an opacity of 1.0, otherwise we pass in an opacity of 0.5. that doesn't work because we do nothing with the opacity within county. But you can see there's already a property defined. So what we can do here is we can also in our draw function set a global alpha to the opacity. And if we do that, we see, okay, now we have an opacity of 0.5. And well, now we have a problem. I'm hovering over this map, but nothing is really happening. And this is now maybe our biggest challenge within that video. How do we get the county where my mouse pointer is without having any HTML elements for the individual counties? We have just the canvas. That's it. The canvas is the only element where we can get information about mouse position. And of course, the canvas doesn't know that it is drawing counties here. It's just drawing shapes. The only thing we know is where the mouse pointer is, and we know the color of the pixel below the mouse pointer. And that is already the trick we have to apply. So what we have to do is we have to assign a different color for each of the 3000 plus counties, so that we can ask via JavaScript, hey canvas, my mouse pointer is here, which color do you have there? And with the color to county ID map, we could then infer which county we are hovering over. Sounds really complex for the problem that it is, but this is the standard way to solve that. So here we fill everything with purple, but we have to fill it with individual colors. What we could do is, I have here also introduced a utils.js, and this is just having one single function, generate color. And this is, if you invoke this function, you get a new color. If you invoke it again, you get a new unique color, and so on and so on. This is just grabbed from Stack Overflow and other sources, so just some standard stuff that is using nice bitwise operator. So yeah, not the topic of this video now, but really nice to look into that. It's basically just defining an RGB variable, a red, green, blue variable of a color. And we can use that. So let me import gen color from utils. And we could use that function now here, where we loop through all the different counties and generate a path. We could also say, okay, let's put in a color ID. I'm saying that the unique color ID because it's a unique color. And then we could just say, hey, run gen color here. And we could then just use the color ID within the loop. And instead of purple, we just fill in not the gen color, but the color ID. And now you can see this is unique colors for each of the counties. It's very red because 3000 counties is not that much. So what I could do, I can tweak this color generating function a little bit so that we get more different colors. So now you can see, okay, it's really different colors per county. Okay, back to the original version. Do not need that anymore. All you need to know is now we have a color ID, a unique color for each of the counties. And now I can just say, well, if I hover over our canvas, so this would be an on mouse move, then I could say, how do we do this in the best way? Just looking up a little bit my plan. Yeah, just wondering how we built that the best way. Yeah, let's do it like that. Let's not do a mouse move directly on the canvas here. Let's go into the canvas component. And let's do the mouse move here directly on the original canvas element. On mouse move, handle mouse move. So we run the handle mouse move function that does not exist yet, but we put that here. Function handle mouse move, and this is getting an event E. And I mean, we could just console log E for now to see what's happening here. Let's go to the console. And yeah, when I'm hovering now, you can see that there are these mouse events and they have a lot of different properties. They have layer X and layer Y, so we could use those for the mouse pointer position. That's good. So let's destructure it. We take layer X and layer Y from E. And now, I mean, we have the context, and there is on the context, there is a function which is called get image data. And in that, you can see it here, we put in the X and Y. This means we have layer X and layer Y. And then we also have to put in how large the area should be where it infers the color. And this should just be 1 pixel times 1 pixel. And const data. And let's just console log that. Now you see we get this image data object, and that has a data property, and here is 0, 1, 2. I think so, at least. The 0, 1, 2 is the R, the G, and the B value. The third one probably is the opacity. But I'm not 100% sure. But the first 3 values are okay. So what we do is, well, we have this data, we could destructure it directly. Oops. And now we are getting like these arrays where we have the RGB value directly in there. We could use that. So we could return now a new RGB, a valid color string, which is RGB. And then we have here data 0, comma, data 1, comma, data 2. And return probably is wrong. Where do I return this? Maybe we do a hovered color ID variable that we make a global one. Let's make that actually a property. Export let hovered color ID. And what we also do is, you can see here that on the canvas is of course here on the top as well. And if there's nothing, basically it gives back black as a color because there is nothing. So what we could do is, well, let's make the following. Let's destructure the RGB value, RGB from data. And then we could do here RGB, that's much more readable. And we could do if R plus G plus B equals 0, then we do a hovered color ID of undefined. And if not, we do the color string as we here. Now we have this hovered color ID. Let's see if that works, because now we can do something like bind hovered color ID to hovered color, not county, hovered color ID, and we'll make this a global variable as well. And we console log this one. Now let's see. Yeah, that's looking good. So now when I'm hovering over the blank space, we're getting an undefined, and then when we hover over the different counties, we get like these RGB values, which are like unique identifiers for each of the counties. And now we just have to check which county is it that has this RGB values. So let's see. Oh, sorry. This Harvard County ID is already used here, but we don't have it. So let's see how we do that. I mean, we could just say, well, let's do it a little bit differently. We say if Harvard color ID. No, it should work like that. The Harvard County, we want to know which county is Harvard, equals the counties, and we find the county. Let's just say C for the county. We found the county where the color ID equals the Harvard color ID. Does that work? Let's see. Harvard County doesn't work because, yeah, we use Harvard County, and I say here the Harvard County.id. We get errors, and it says cannot read properties of undefined in 48. Yeah, here Harvard County is undefined and we want to read the ID now. So if we do that, we have to do something like this. So first check if Harvard County exists. This is looking good. And now, yeah, it's sprinkling around a lot. Not sure why that is. Probably because everything is so small. Or we have a problem with our X and Y values or whatever. Let me just check the problem that we might have at least. So the Harvard County is counties not find where the color ID equals the Harvard color ID. This is looking good. Let's just look into the counties here. They have this color ID, which looks also like that, RGB 100, stuff like that. And then here, yeah. I know what it is. It's basically the problem that we have an opacity on all these counties, and this is why the color cannot be retrieved properly. And yeah, this is of course a problem because we highlight by using the opacity. So what we could do for now is, yeah, we could add a stroke or whatever, but we want to keep that. And of course we have the problem that we now colored our map in a very specific and awkward way. We want to have our old colors back. But we still need this canvas here with the differently colored counties. So what could we do? And let's get rid of this path now, finally. What we could do is we could just introduce a second canvas. So I put a second canvas here below. And we leave the second canvas first as it is. And for the first canvas, we really use now our old styles like the purple and the opacity as it was. And for our second canvas, we just use an opacity of 1.0 for everything. And the second canvas doesn't show up because it's now just lying somewhere else. We cannot go there. So we have to make this second canvas positioned in an absolute way so that it can lie over our canvas here, and then we make it as such invisible with an opacity of 1, so that we can hover over our invisible canvas, get the colors of our counties, infer which county it is, but reflect the hovering on our purple map here. So a good thing you can do if you have a custom component and you want to pass down styles, you can just put on CSS variables like that. So we could say position is absolute, and then in canvas here in the styles we can say, well, the canvas that we have, we can style this one with a position, and then we grab the CSS variable position that we put on the parent, and we can provide a default value if there is nothing, and we do that now. So you have position is absolute. Let's see if that works. Let's just reload for now. Okay. And when you position absolute, you should also provide where you want to position it. So top 0, left 0. And now we can see our second canvas again. So there is first this canvas, which is the canvas we want to actually see and where all the visualization is happening. And then we have a second canvas, which is positioned absolutely above our first canvas, and which is just there to grab the color and to identify the counters by their color. So let's just also put a property height here, and we can just say here in the canvas, we say there is now a new property height, and this is initially false. But if it is true, we could just apply, let me just style that a little bit, we could apply a class that we could, that we just call height, and this is dependent on the height boolean. We could also just write as well this. So the height class is only there when height is true. And then in the styling we could say, well, height is just opacity 0. And now it is gone again. And you can see, well, now our hovering works. It doesn't work perfectly. So you can see that there are little jumps. So, and this is because if I zoom in here, you can see that we have a little bit of a problem with anti-aliasing. So in between the counties, we have some colors that we have not defined at all. And sometimes they are just by chance matching a color of a different county. And then we see these jumps. And I think we could circumvent that a little bit by providing strokes here. So we could just add to our invisible canvas a stroke of white, like that. And in our county.svelte there's already the stroke. And what we have to do now is we say if there is some stroke, then we set ctx.stroke_style equals the stroke, which is the color, and then we say ctx.stroke and use the path again to draw it. So let's see, yeah, now it's better. So now we basically avoid to have these jumps in between. And this is because, let me just show you this, if I say height equals false, then we get our initial, not our initial, but our overlying canvas again, and then you see we have this nice white borders that make it impossible that we get their colors that are close to any other color that we have. Alright, the stroke is quite thick. Let's just make sure that we use the right stroke width. So stroke width is also a property here. We do not set it, so it's 1. And we can do ctx dot, I think it's line width, and then we use stroke width here. And then we are making sure that it's just 1 pixel here. Alright, let's hide this one again. And now if you remember, we had this little effect that we have like all the different counties that we were on within the last 800 milliseconds, I think it was, were still highlighted. So we have to implement that in JavaScript as well if you want to have that. Actually in Svelte it's not that complicated, so maybe let's do it. So what we need is, it's the opacity, which is the value that is key here. And in our county.svelte we get the opacity of 1.0 standardly in here, but it is set to 0.5 if this is not the Harvard County ID, stuff like that. Right? So what we have to do is now we have to animate it a little bit, and this is possible with tweened stores. Not sure if we worked with that before. I'm just showing you how that works. So we import tweened from Svelte, and this is really something coming from Svelte. So tweened from Svelte, and then here in the very beginning we defined a tweened opacity, so I'm always calling this T opacity, whatever. Then we run the tweened functions, taking the opacity from the beginning, and then you can provide an object here where you say, okay, the duration of this tweening, which is the animation of a value, if it changes from one to another value, should be like 400 milliseconds, or well, let's say 200 milliseconds. And then you can also specify a delay here of 0, so it should start the transition immediately. And then this T opacity is a so-called Svelte store. So what we do is whenever opacity changes, we do T opacity dot-set opacity. So we fill in the new opacity, and then the value of T opacity is animating over these 200 milliseconds that we defined here. And then we just have to use here, instead of the direct opacity, we use the T opacity, and we have to use the value of T opacity, and we can access that value with the $sign as well. Now let's see. Now this whole opacity stuff should, no it doesn't, should work. Provide an export name tweened. Well, yeah, tweened is not exported from Svelte, but from Svelte/motion. This should work. Yes, and now there is a slight tween on the change of the opacity. All right, but we are missing the trail, and we can implement that with another delay. So what we can do is here we can also, with the set method, we can provide a new options object. So the duration should still be 200, but now the delay, we make this delay dependent on the opacity. So if the opacity equals 1, then we want to have no delay. Otherwise we want to have a delay of 800 milliseconds. So if it switches back to 0.5, we want to have that delay of 800 milliseconds. So let's see. Yes, that works. And now we got our trail again. Now this time the trail is completely controlled via JavaScript. Well, now we are set up to do some zooming. So let's get back to app, and let's get rid of the console log here. We want to do something like that. Let me show you. So this is an example from D3 directly, where you have a map at the states now, and then you can click on one of these states, and then you get a zoom in, and you can also zoom back. Oops, by just clicking here, and then you get the whole map again. So the first thing we need is a on-click. And yeah, why do you want to click? You want to basically click on main, right? So on click, we want to, we can just do a clicked county variable, and we set that to the Harvard County, because the Hubbard county is there, and when I click, I want to store this county where I'm just hurrying in click county. Now we're getting these accessibility errors, so I will quickly switch them off for now. And we need clicked county. Let clicked county. And this is undefined in the beginning. Yeah. And now, if there is a clicked county, we want to do the zooming. If not, we want to do the zoom out. So zoom in here, zoom out there. And for that, we define now a new variable which we call a transform, and this variable should hold information about the scaling, so how should our canvas be scaled, and also the translation, so how should I XY translate my canvas to go to a certain county. And D3 comes with a standard transform object, which is the zoom identity, and this one can be imported from D3. And just to show you this, we do a console log of transform. And you can see transform is a transform object, but it has a K property. This is the scaling, so scale is 1. And we have an X and a Y, which is the translation, just 0. So this is like the standard. Nothing is scaled, nothing is translated. That's it. And you can imagine that if there is no click county, then we should reset this transform to zoom identity so that we get back, right? Now, what should we do in here to zoom in? And for that, we can have a look how Mike Bostock has solved this. And I think there is this clicked function here. And of course, this is the whole pure D3 way to do this. But what we see here is this one is the way how Mike Bostock transforms the zoom identity, the scaling of 1, the no translation, to something else. So with just translate to the center of the map, then do the scaling based on the bounds. So x1, x0, y1, y. That's the bounds of the county that we clicked on. And then also the translation based on these bounds. So let me just copy that out. So this is going to be interesting now. We're just putting that in here. So zoom identity, translate the width and height, we have that. We do not have x1, x0, so this is the bounds at the upper left and the lower right corner of a county that we clicked on. So we need that bounds before. Let me just format that a little bit. So we need these bounds, and we could basically store the bounds already within our counties array. So let's do that. Let's not only store the path and the color ID and stuff like that, but also the bounds. And here we could use the path generator, and it has a bounds method, I think, where we put in the feature. And then we're getting an error here because all this X, Y stuff is not known. So we have the clicked county, so we could just say, let's just say console log click county dot bounds, and let's comment that out. Now when I click here, I get these array of arrays where we have the bounds in, so we can just extract that from here. So let's do the following. Let's say const, and we destructure that. Let's see, let me just check. Yeah, we could do something like that. could directly destructure x0 and y0 are in the first array. In the second array, that we destructure with x1 and y1. Does it make sense? So, and then we can use them here. There's a comma, which could be a semicolon. Now we can format it. And let me just make that a little bit larger now for you. So if there is a click county, we get the bounds from this click county, the x0, the y0, and the x1 and the y1 coordinate, pixel point. And then we use the zoom identity, translate it to the center of our map, scale it by using now the bounds of this county where I clicked on, and then also translating it by using these bounds. That's it. And this whole thing is then assigned to a new transform. So transform is then changing, and we should see that in our console. So transform is 100, the beginning, and now I'm clicking here, and well, now we get a new transform with a k of 8, with an x of minus something pixels and a y of minus something pixels. Looks interesting. The k is 8 because there is a math min 8, so it might probably be higher, but we are limiting it at an 8-fold scaling, otherwise it looks really weird. Well, and now we have to use that transform within our canvas to make this transform happen. How does that work? So the question is, where should we put it? I mean, we could put the transform within the county, then we could within the county say, well, apply the transform to the context here. The thing is, then we would 3000 plus times apply this transformation, so it would be very inefficient. Might be better to put in the transform into the canvas directly. Let's do it like that. Not known yet, so canvas, let's put that here maybe, export let transform. And well, where to put it? I would recommend to make this also very reactive here, because the transform can change anytime. So I would say if there is a transform, so if everything is set up, we should maybe run the invalidate function, because the invalidate function is redrawing all our counties. So let's do it like that. The problem is that this invalidate function is not known globally here, it's just defined within this context stuff. But of course we can change that. We'll just say, well, there should be a function invalidate, and this invalidate function has this contents, and then we say here we're just passing in the invalidate function into our context. That should still work. Yeah. And if transform changes now, we run the invalidate function, and the invalidate function runs the update function, and the update function uses here all the functions from the children, from the counties, to draw them again. And we could just put in here, before it does that, we could do a translate. We could say ctx dot, I never know if you scale first or translate first. Let's see, we do a ctx scale, and then we use the transform dot k, and this is two-dimensional, transform dot k, and then we do a ctx dot translate, and we use transform dot x and transform dot y. Now let's see if that works. Cannot read properties of undefined, reading k. Why? Because k should be there from the beginning. Let's just do a console Well, what we could do is we could just say, well, this should only happen if also the context is there. Let's see if that works. No, it doesn't work. Then let's go there, CTX scale, transform. Let's just do a console log of transform here. So indeed the transform is undefined for a moment, which is interesting. We should definitely, I know why, because we have two canvases. For the first one, everything is fine, but we haven't applied the transform to our invisible one, and this is of course important, it should also transform. So now it's working, and now, okay, we should get rid of this console log here, which is doing a lot of stuff. And now, if I click there, oh, nothing happens. And this has to do, well, nothing happens is not true, but I guess this is because we first have to translate and then we have to scale. That looks better. So let's click again. Yes! Here's our county that we centered. Now I can click to different, yeah, well, that's looking good. It works, but it's not animated yet. Always, it happens very quickly here. Let's animate it, and let me just try one thing. Can I put that out from the array? No. Wow, that doesn't work. I have no idea why. But let's do it like that. All right, that's fine. Yeah, well, true. We have to draw it for each of these counties like that. Nice, nice. Very nice. All right. Let's animate it. And also here we can use tween again. So let's import tweened from Svelte Motion. Let's say we have now a tweened transform. And this is tweened text initial transform. And then we say, hey, let's use a duration of 400 milliseconds again. And maybe let's just also use an easing, maybe a cubic in out, which is imported from Svelte easing. And then we can say, well, the T transform how do we build that the best way? T transform dot set transform, so whenever transform changes, and maybe we can do it like that, so that we can use then, if the value of T transform is changing, then please invalidate. And then we have to use here the $T transform. And let's see if that works. So I'm clicking. Yes, it works. And now, yeah, we can switch. So yeah, if we click on like the blank space, then it's getting back. Here we have a little bit of problem when we are like in the inner country, we have no chance to go back. I want to press escape to go back. So let's see if we can build that in. In that case, we could just use the Svelte window and we say on key down, we say e.key equals escape. That is true, then do how's it called, the clicked county to undefined. think we have to put that into parentheses. Yeah. Let's see if that works. So I'm clicking. And now I'm pressing escape. Yes, it works. So yeah, this is our zoomable map with canvas. Really nice. It's not using the D3 zoom stuff. So if you have like automatic zooms, I recommend you to just do it with these Svelte batteries included that you have. And now that's really nice. Cool. That's it. That was now a little bit more complex, more advanced. But I hope that you learned something new. Please check out also my other videos on Svelte D3 and see you soon. Bye.